Okay, hopefully you shared some responses about how this really shows the action happening. We didn't want to just say they were boxing. We want to see Felix grunting, throwing wild punches, bobbing and weaving. We want to picture it. And if you can't picture it, it's not interesting. So verbs, they make it interesting. They make it good. And they keep us engaged as readers. All right, now it's time to get into our writer's notebooks. So right now, have your writer's notebook opened. If you're using a composition notebook, that's perfectly fine as well. So let's take a look inside your writer's notebook. Today, we're going to be getting into verbs. And so you can just be right at the very tippy top of your writer's notebook. Go ahead and put today's date right here. You probably have to type the word date and put in today's date. And we're going to be learning all about verbs today. So I'm going to type in verbs. And I'm actually going to center it just because that's my preference. You can set yours up any way that you would like to. And we're going to be talking about those action words. So verbs, these are our action words that we're going to be really focused in on. Again, this is your writer's notebook and or your composition notebook, and this is where you write and gather your thoughts. There's not always a right or a wrong way. All right, well, we're going to start right off with a writer's secret when it comes to verbs. So once you get your verbs area set and ready to write in for today, I want you to scroll on down to your writer's secrets. Now, mine are way down here. So I'm going to find those writer's secrets. All right. All right, we're going to be adding a writer's secret right in here to our chart. Some of you need to update your charts to put in the latest writer's secret, which is using a title, finding a passage or a phrase from your writing piece. And why do we do that? Because it builds interest. So if you haven't added in that writer's secret, you'll want to put that one in right now. And we're about to put in a new one. If you need to add in another row below in your chart, you simply click in your last row and just do a quick little 2-finger tap and then insert a row below. Once you click on that, it'll put a row right below wherever you're at. All right, so we're going to be working right here. And today, it's going to be all about verbs. So let's talk about verbs. Our writer's secret is the fact that good writers, they use action verbs instead of linking verbs. Linking verbs are to be verbs. These are the verbs we want to avoid. They're verbs that are is, am, are, was, were, be, being. They don't do anything. They're just simply telling. So take a look. Thursday was windy. Every sentence has a verb. So was is the verb here. It's just not a powerful verb because it's a linking verb. Take a look what happens when I take out that linking verb and I use an action verb. Thursday, the wind whipped through the trees. This really shows. So we want to use action verbs as often as possible to really show our readers what's going on in our writing piece. So our writer's secret here is to use action verbs. So go ahead and put that in there, to use action verbs. And why do authors do this? Because it shows the reader what is happening. And our example is the wind whipped through the trees. Instead of just saying it was windy. All right, go ahead and pause, teachers. Give students a second to go ahead and update their writer's secrets. Once you have this chart filled in, go ahead and scroll back up to the top, and we're going to be working under your verbs section inside your writer's notebooks. All right, so let's get into some action verbs, these action words. I want you to start off right now with listing your 3 favorite actions. So right now, here are some of my 3 favorite actions. One of them is relaxing. Another one is casting, because I love to go fishing, so I love to be casting the line out into the channel. And a third one is reading. That kind of goes with my relaxing. That's one of the ways I relax, is just to sit back and read a book. So those are three of my favorite action words. So right now I want you to put down three of your favorite action words right now in your writer's notebook. Take a second and do that. Three of your most beloved verbs. All right, hopefully you've gotten those down. And now let's take a look at what we're going to do next. I want you to create a sentence describing a highlight or maybe one thing you did over the weekend. So it could be a highlight, maybe it's something you're looking forward to this week, or maybe it's something you did over the weekend, but I want you to load it full of action verbs. And they could be the action verbs that you wrote down that are the most beloved verbs, or maybe there's something totally different. So you're looking at this image right here. These are actually my foster kittens. And in case you didn't know, that's what I do, foster kittens. So take a look at my sentence from my weekend. Mrs. McCaskey spent the weekend watching her 9 foster kittens chase their tails, capture the toy mice, and scarf down kitten chow. Right now, I want you to write a little highlight about your weekend, or maybe something you're looking forward to. Put in as many action verbs as you can and underline those. Do that right inside your writer's notebook. Okay, in your writer's notebook, you should have written down that sentence that's contained with tons of action words. I'd like you to take a minute and share out, maybe with a seat partner, somebody nearby, maybe just share out a few inside your crew. So just take a minute and share those out. All right, we're going to keep working with some verbs here and really focusing in on the action. So let's do a little practice with rice cake verbs versus fireball verbs. All right, I'm going to give you a rice cake verb, and I want you to come up with at least 3 better fireball verbs, ones that really show. So let's take a look at a rice cake verb here. So here's Mrs. Bixby. That's it. I'm writing you a double detention, Mrs. Bixby said. So said here is definitely a rice cake. Actually, I usually say said is dead, and we try not to use it very often at all when we're writing, because there are literally over 100 better words than said. So right now, what would be a better verb than said? See if you can come up with 3 better word choices for said. I'm telling you, she didn't just say this. All right, so take a minute and inside your writer's notebook, go ahead and write down the word said. Then list some fireballs for said. Like she said, she didn't say it, she shouted. So come up with at least 3 better word choices, some fireballs for said. All right, hopefully you came up with some great ones like roared or snapped, screamed, bellowed, demanded, hissed. All of these are better word choices than just the boring old rice cake word of said. All right, let's try another one. Let's take a look at this one. The crime scene investigator saw the footprints and broken glass in the streetlight. Write the word saw down inside your writer's notebook and see if you can come up with at least 3 better word choices for saw. Look at them. What is he doing? Come up with an action for saw. So right now, I'm going to go inside my writer's notebook. I'm going to write down the word saw. And I'm going to come up with some better word choice than saw. Maybe investigated. So come up with some better word choice. All right, what if you come up with? Take a second and share some of these fireballs that you came up with inside your crew. Okay, hopefully you've put down at least 3. Maybe you've even come up with 5 from just listening. So take a look at this right now. You might have examined or studied or analyzed, observed, noticed, stared, cited, scrutinized. You get the point. There are a lot of better word choices for the word saw. So you want to have some fireball verbs that go in there. All right, let's continue on with our learning about verbs. So we're really going to focus in on action verbs. We're going to need to know the difference between an action verb and a linking verb. And we're going to do lots of practice with that and learn some helpful hints along the way. So the first thing you need to know is that there are two types of action verbs. There are visible actions, things you can actually see. Like you can see the penguin waddle. You can see the swimmer dive. You can see the science experiment explode. But then there's also mental actions, things you can't see. Like you can't see that person is dreaming, or you can't see someone is wondering or discovering. So those are some that you can't see, but they're still great action verbs. They're just a mental action. Now, action verbs, pretty easy to figure out. They're doing something. But here are the tricky ones, linking verbs. So there's action verbs, which really show, and linking verbs pretty much tell. They don't do anything else. So let's just take a brief look at it, and then we'll take a quick note in our writer's notebook. Linking verbs, they're just equal signs. Some common ones are is, am, are, was, and were. There's no action that happens with linking verbs, so we want to avoid overusing them in our writing. They just simply tell, they don't show. They tell what is happening, so they link a noun to an adjective. Right here, the lifeguard was muscular. You can definitely see that when you're looking at this big old muscular arm, but there's no action happening. It's just telling you. The lifeguard looked buff. Again, he's not doing anything. It's just telling you that he looks buff. And the lifeguard looked at me. That's an actual action. He's actually doing it. So right here, the lifeguard looked at me is an action verb. So we're going to take a couple little notes here, and they'll start to make more sense the more we practice with them. Know that we're going to keep practicing for days to come. So right now, inside your writer's notebook, let's take a quick note. Action verbs. These are the ones we want. These are the fireball. These are the fireball of verbs. They show. Then we have linking verbs. They're a little more rice cake. While they're necessary, we don't want to overuse them. They simply tell. Now, there's a nice little helpful hint to help us try and figure out the difference between an action verb and a linking verb. And you'll hear this more than once throughout this week. But I'm going to have you put it into your writer's notebook right now because you're going to hear me talk about it. So there's a helpful hint. To be able to tell if something is, if the verb is a action or a linking verb. So helpful hint, to test for a linking verb, you want to substitute the verb using am, is, or are. If it makes sense, you have a linking verb. It's going to make more sense the more we practice with it. So to test for a linking verb, substitute the verb using am, is, or are. And if it makes sense, you have a linking verb. All right, like I said, it's going to make more sense the more we do this. And we're going to do a lot of practice, and you're going to hear me say it over and over again. So let's take a look right now at doing a little bit of practice of knowing the difference between an action verb and a linking verb. So take a look. I have right here some sentences, and the verb is underlined. So right now in your writer's notebook, put number 1. So in my writer's notebook, I'm going to put number 1. And what you're going to do, if you think the verb is an action verb, you're going to put an A. If you think the verb is a linking verb, you're going to put an L. All right, so let's try it out and see how you do. So number 1, Chloe looked amused. Chloe looked very amused. What do you think? Do you think the verb looked here is an action, or do you think it's linking? So the way we test for it is to take the word looked out and replace it with am, is, or are. If it makes sense, then we have a linking verb. So let's take a look. Chloe is very amused. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does. So I know I have a linking verb because it makes sense. Plus, she's not doing anything. There's no action happening here. It's just telling me. So for number 1, you should put down an L. That was just a telling statement. It's just a linking verb. Like I said, it'll make more sense the more we do it. All right, let's look at number 2. Number 2, Riley looked at her grade. What do you think looked is here? Do you think it's an action or a linking? Can I substitute looked for am, is, or are? Riley is at her grade. Riley are at her grade. Riley am at her grade. Doesn't make sense. So, is it doing something? Riley looked at her grade. Yeah, she's actually doing something. She's looking at it. So, it's an action. Go ahead and put a capital A. All right, let's try these next ones. Alicia smelled the freshly baked cookies. What do you think? Do you think smelled is action or linking? Can you substitute am, is, or are and have it still make sense? Is she doing something? A or L? If you said A, you are correct. This is an action. Alicia is actually doing something. So I can't say Alicia is the freshly baked cookies. It doesn't make sense. So it's not a linking. Let's try number 4. James smelled like vanilla lotion. What do you think smelled is here? Do you think it's an action or linking? Go ahead and put an A or an L. Can I substitute am, is, or are for this? Is it doing anything? Nope, there's no action happening here. James is just telling you that he smells like vanilla lotion. There's no action. So if he was smelling the lotion, it'd be different. But there's no action. So this one is linking. So let's make sure right now for number 3, you have an action. Number 4, you have a linking. Let's take a look at number 5. Sarah felt the goat's head. What do you think? Is felt action or linking? Go ahead and put it down. Remember, you can substitute am, is, or are, and if it makes sense, you have a linking verb. Take a look. Is Sarah doing something? Can you see that? I can. Sarah felt the goat's head. I can't say Sarah is the goat's head. That doesn't make any sense. So this is an action. Take a look at number 6. Jackie felt nervous for cheer tryouts. What do you think? Action or linking? Can you substitute am, is, or are? Yes, you can. Jackie is nervous for cheer tryouts. So I have a linking verb, and it's just telling me something here. It's just a telling statement. All right, go ahead, and we're going to try numbers 7 and 8. These are a little bit trickier. So take a few minutes and see, can you write a sentence that the verb is taste and you make it an action? And can you write a sentence where the verb is taste and it's a linking verb? Take a few minutes and try and do 7 and 8 and share them out. Okay, hopefully you came up with a sentence that you use taste as an action verb and then you use taste as a linking verb. Let's take a look. Here's mine, and here's how I checked it out. Tom tasted the hot peppers. So I know this is an action because I can't say Tom is the hot peppers. And then number 8, that soup tastes terrible. That soup is terrible. I can substitute it and it makes sense. So that helps me to know that I have a linking verb. Plus, there's no action happening in that sentence. It's just telling. All right, that's it for today. We're going to keep practicing more with action and linking because you're going to need to know it for your quiz next week. Plus, we want to use action verbs when we write, and we're going to be writing our own action-packed stories a little later on this week. All right, that's all for now, sailors.